When it comes to the hobby of speedrunning, certain games are seen as the examples of what it means to be a perfect speedrun. Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, and even Minecraft. These games have some of the most competitive and biggest speedrun communities to ever exist. When most people think about speedrunning, these are the games that come to mind. Within these games, you can start to place them into categories: movement based, glitches and exploit based, and luck based. Depending on what the runner is looking for in a speedrun, they will usually gravitate to one of these games. But it's always important to remember that just because a game isn't at the top of speedrun.com or that it doesn't get the highest views, any game can be a speedrun. And no game shows this off better than Monster Racer. Released on November 2001 for the PlayStation 1, Monster Racer would be a game that didn't receive a lot of attention at the time of release. Even looking the game up nowadays, you often get redirected to Monster Racers, which was a Nintendo DS game that released several years later. So this begs the question, why is Monster Racer so obscure? Well, it could be due to a few things. For starters, the game was only released in Europe, which means that only a PAL copy of the game exists. Next was that it was published by the newly founded Microids. For years, Microids couldn't find a place in the mainstream, with failure after failure. The company was almost due for bankruptcy, unless they could find a way to turn it around. Eventually, they would get their lucky break. They would be able to merge with MC2 in 2003. With the guidance of MC2, they would release Siberia 2 in 2004, which would be their first game to receive high reviews and high sales figures. To this day, Microids is still around making games, and it's all thanks to one game's success. But none of that matters. And that's because Monster Racer was released in 2001, so the merge hadn't happened yet. Therefore, the company was still very unknown. The few people that did give Monster Racer a chance didn't really have nice things to say about it. GameFAQs has the game sitting at a bad rating, and the game itself has found a new home on the Crappy Games wiki with a huge list of reasons of why the game sucks. But with all of this negativity being said, the game does have 14 runners on the main speedrun.com board. Why? What is the history behind these runs, and why did they all start showing up around October of 2021? Well, my name is Dereklander, and I'm one of those very runners you see on the board. Now let me tell you about the unbelievable history and story of Monster Racer. It all started with the very first run on the board by Cyberdemon531 on March 15th, 2019. You heard that correctly. While most speed games have their origins tracked back into the early 2000s or even before, this game didn't even have a single run until 2019. And as such, this is the earliest world record we can look at and understand how the game even works. Monster Racer as a game is very simple. It's your basic kart racer where the player will need to traverse all 20 tracks. After each track, the player is awarded points based on their finished position. This technically means that you don't have to get first on every track, but you just have to have enough points to be number one in the standings. Once you have gone through all the tracks and placed first, you must race a boss. During the boss race, you must come in first, or you will redo that race. Then, once the final boss is defeated, the run is complete. So let's have a look at what world record was like in 2019. Cyberdemon starts the game and chooses Militia as their character. In this game, you have a collection of characters to choose from, with only Master and Gritton being locked. They all have different speed, acceleration, and turning stats. Alicia appears to have the most balanced stats with 6 out of 9s across the board, so Cyber Demon chooses her, and the run begins. We start the run in the Botanic Garden, which is the easiest track in the game and therefore a good starting point to go over a few things. On the bottom right, you will have your speed meter and a boost meter. You start each race with a specific amount of boost. You can collect more boost in the item boxes. A small urn grants the player a small boost, and a big urn grants the player a big boost. The difference between these two isn't how much the meter is necessarily filled. Each one fills up the meter all the way. The difference is the speed of the boost. The big urn outpaces the small urn by a drastic amount. It's not even close. And since the boost meter you start with is already full of small urn boost, the metagame kind of begins to unravel. You see, since the big urn is such a time saver, the meta of this game is to throw away and collect as many item boxes as you can, so you can increase your chances of getting a big urn. But you have to keep in mind that boosts aren't the only thing in these item boxes. The game has a total of 9 items, and not every item is necessarily a benefit. You will have the reverse controls that swaps your left and right directions on your D-pad, and the flashbang, which will flash you to high hell and make it impossible to see where the fuck you're going. The other items, while not directly harming the player, are not very helpful either, as they are often traps that you lay on the ground to slow down your opponents, or homing bats that can target opponents. Why are these not useful, you might ask? Well, if you haven't noticed, during most of the gameplay on screen, we are in first place basically the whole time. And that is because the AI in this game is a fucking joke. You start every race in last place, but after using your boost, you can quickly pass them within seconds. The only time you will see them again is when you are lapping them, which will happen on every track, assuming you are playing even remotely decently. And sometimes, if you're playing so good, you can lap them twice. The AI does have items that can hurt you, however, with one of them being the absolute worst, the small. During the race, an AI opponent can small you, which basically slows you down to a crawling speed for about 8 seconds. Not even boosting does anything during this phase. You are just out of luck when you get hit with this item. Now, the small power-up is only possible to get when you're not in first place. Since you will always be in first place, you can't defend yourself by necessarily hoarding the item from others. Not to mention that even the fucking shield item in this game cannot save you from this hellish power-up, and sometimes the AI loves to spam this shit.
Oh, for fuck's sake, of course. What the fuck?
But with that all being said, let's go back to the actual first run of the game. We can see that Cyber Demon's boost meter is filled up at the top, but isn't being used. You might be wondering why, and the only answer I can sensibly come up with is that they just didn't know that boost button existed. I am dead fucking serious. The whole speedrun doesn't use the boost once. That just goes to show how easy a world record is in these obscure games. But anyway, after Botanic Garden, we continue making our way through the next few levels, such as Port, Mad Jungle, Egypte, Castle, Museum, Mine, Iceberg, Teeth Pass, and topping it off with a boss race at Volcano. After the boss race, you have reached the halfway point of the run, and will now have to complete the other tracks in the game. Tracks such as Botanic Garden, Port, Mad Jungle, Egypte, Castle, Museum, Mine, Iceberg, Teeth Pass, and to top it off with a final boss race at Volcano. You heard that right. You must do all the tracks in this game twice in the speedrun, with the only difference being that they are reversed this time, which for most tracks doesn't make a damn difference. So, after 10 tracks are completed twice and 2 bosses are defeated, the run is officially over. And Cyberdemon's run clocked in at 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 23 seconds. And it was officially the world record and the starting grounds for the speedrun. With a record so unoptimized to the point that the boost button wasn't used once, surely someone would come along and beat it, right? This world record would end up lasting for over 1 year. All hope was lost for Monster Racer in these early days, I'm telling you. But eventually, someone would beat it, and it's someone you might have heard of before. The Rixer is a figure you might have heard of if you follow the PlayStation speedrunning scene. He makes great videos on speedrunning and partakes in the speedrunning hobby himself. And on February 15th, 2020, he would submit a Monster Racer run of his own.
Well, I think I remember how I got it, actually. I got Monster Racer pretty late. In my hometown, I don't know, 7,000 people, so it's pretty small, but there was this yearly carnival there. And if you go like a bit further in the back of the carnival, there's like a kind of a flea market of just people trying to like get rid of their stuff or like selling their things. I know I got like King of Fighters 95 from that, and I want to say that that's also how I got Monster Racer. I think someone was just trying to get rid of it. I mean, honestly, I don't know what got into my like 8-year-old self or whatever, but I just looked at that damn cover and I was like, dude, this is rad. I gotta get Monster Racer. This is the shit. So I get the game, you know, I go home and I play it, and it's got this goofy ass music. The cover's so fucking lame. The goons from the cemetery is just coming out to race. After playing a ton of PS1 games as a kid, you know, the load screens are kind of, you get used to them, right? But I noticed, especially on Monster Race, I'm like, oh my god, this takes forever. And so I looked at speedrun.com and I looked and there was only one run by Cyberdemon. And Cyberdemon is kind of known to just run like a billion games and not really get that great of a time in it. So they were using like the witch character, which is not even that fast. So I was like, I can beat that. Even with like crappy loads, I just beat that on like my first try or something.
A run that was 6 minutes faster than the world record. Let's see how he did it. The run starts again in Botanic Garden and he makes his way through. He gathers as many item crates as he can in hopes of getting an urn. In Cyberdemon's run, the item boxes weren't really a priority. I mean, since you're not boosting, the only thing they could do is hurt you. But in the Rixer's run, item boxes were cycled through very quickly, often dropping an item just to pick a new one up mere seconds after one another. Other than that, the run itself is pretty straightforward. Just try to get the urns and go as quickly as possible. The character Hitchcock was quite a slow character, however, and when the boost ran dry, this scarecrow didn't move very fast. Hitchcock had great turning and acceleration, but his speed was sorely lacking. Despite this, the Rixer would come away with a time of 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 28 seconds. The run was still unoptimized, mainly with the poor character choice, but the meta of cycling item boxes for boost had proved to be very, very effective. A meta that would go on to define how Monster Racer would be played forever. So now the run count had been increased to 2 members, yet no one was willing to give the game a shot. Months and months passed, with nothing new happening. I mean, not anyone would try the game. But then the Halloween season would come around again in 2021. You see, the benefit of a game being Halloween themed is that Halloween comes around every year, so it gives people a reason to try it during the spooky month when they otherwise wouldn't. On October 31st, 2021, the Rixer would come back to Monster Racer and do another run. But this time, the run was different. Between his first Monster Racer run and this one, he would grow his social media presence by a considerable amount. So by streaming his attempt, it would put a spotlight on the game that had been hidden for so long.
I don't really care much for Christmas, but Halloween I've always really cared for. So I wanted to do something. I usually always like play like a Silent Hill game or a horror game or something, but I'm like, okay, let's do something different this year. Let's pull out Monster Racer again. It would fit perfectly. If I meme it up, if I put a bunch of crap on the stream, maybe people will realize that, okay, he's fucking around. Like what's he doing? And what's this game? It'll get people intrigued.
The character choice was Hitchcock, and the strats remained the same, but the Rixer would come away with a time of 1 hour, 21 minutes, and 56 seconds, which would be the new world record. But that didn't really matter. What mattered is that more people now knew that this game existed thanks to the livestream, and one of these runners would go on to increase the game's popularity tenfold. That runner would be CF Gamebreaker. CF Gamebreaker saw the Rixer streaming Monster Racer and decided to give it a shot. They would end up with a time of 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 15 seconds for their first run. And that would place them at second place. They too would also choose Hitchcock as their character, but other than that, everything else was the same. Get as many item boxes as you can and boost your way through the run. The difference between the Rixer and CFG was that CFG was sort of hooked on the game and started putting down multiple runs while the Rixer only had 2.
I'm a big fan of memes, of the meme game. So when I saw Ricky playing this game that just looked like absolute dog shit, I was like, okay, this is something special. Like, it's all RNG. I mean, obviously there is skill, right? But it's like you can just take random people and they can have fun with it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to practice the run. You can just pick up the game and do a run, and that's what is like makes it a good meme game.
The next day, on November 1st, 2021, CFG would achieve a time of 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 14 seconds. In the video, CFG strats wouldn't change, but the character choice would, swapping from Hitchcock to Digo, with a Speedrun.com note reading Digo Meta. And while this can easily be passed off as a quick joke or something more important lies underneath that statement. Something that would go on to change the character meta in Monster Racer forever. Earlier in the video, I mentioned how every character has those stats shown in-game via the speed, acceleration, and turn diagram. For a while in the speedrun history, we just took the stats at face value and didn't think anything about them. That was until a newly added Speedrun.com mod for the game Sucked decided to do a breakdown of each character's stats by viewing the in-game files. And by doing so, he found something very, very game-changing. What if I told you that every single stat on the character selection screen was lying to you this entire time? These are the real character stats. It can be a lot to take in, knowing that every single stat the game shows the player is incorrect. Some are just a little off, and some are very, very off. Keep in mind that the characters Master and Gridlock are locked until a playthrough is completed, so these characters cannot be selected for the speedrun. So once we scratch out those characters, we can see an outlier among the rest of the cast. Digo has the top speed of the unlocked characters. Digo has the top acceleration of the unlocked characters. Diggo has the top acceleration of the unlocked characters when it comes to boosting. And Diggo's turning stat is way higher than the game tells the player, with it being at a 6 out of 10. While most other slower characters only beat him in the turning department by 0.9, which is basically meaningless. Without a doubt, Diggo is the best playable character in the game. And the rest of the competition, well, they don't even stand a chance. From this point forward, Diggo would be known as the only viable character in the game, as literally any other character would be putting yourself at a major disadvantage. Diggo single-handedly changed the character meta of Monster Racer forever, and the game would never be the same. November 2nd, 2021 would be the last time that Monster Racer would sit at 3 runners, as on the following day, a new challenger would rise to the scene. His name was Cartoon Kid, and he would take world record with a time of 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 52 seconds. The run itself had good RNG for the time being, as Cartoon Kid had gotten 10 best segments during this run. Best segments are seen in speedrunning as the fastest completed time for each section of a speedrun. So every time you would go into a track, from start to finish, that would be a segment. With Monster Racer, you have 20 segments to get the best time, and Cartoon Kid took half of them in one run. Saying Cartoon Kid was ahead of the competition at the time would be a huge understatement. Cartoon Kid was just better at taking lines and seemed to understand how to take hard turns with Diggo. Not only that, but his item rotation was amazing for the time, as Cartoon Kid would get many chances to roll for urns and didn't miss item boxes very often. This run would go down in history as the first time that the world record was actually a showcase of not only just good luck, but also good skill. Gone were the days of no boost world records or world record on your first run. Now, you would have to actually put in some work before a world record would just be handed to you. During this time, there was a shift in the way the game is timed. Before, runs used to be timed with real time, but due to the PS2's unfair load advantage when it comes to emulators, and not all emulators having the same load times, it was decided to swap to in-game time moving forward. I mean, the game was only released in PAL regions, so most players weren't going to have a copy of the game. So changing the in-game time helped increase competition and fairness for the future. For this reason, I will be referring to times in the in-game time format for the rest of this video. So now Cartoon Kid's 1 hour, 18 minute, and 52 second time was converted to a 1 hour, 6 minute, and 41 second time. During this time, CFG would try to expand Monster Racer's popularity by convincing many Spyro the Dragon speedrunners to give the game a shot.
If you're playing this dumb little meme game, it's not really fun if you're just playing it by yourself, right? You have to get your friends in on it.
I was one of those people, and on November 4th, I decided to give the game a shot. I didn't know about the character stats, so I ended up choosing Hitchcock as my main character. A decision that costed me a ton of time, but the time itself didn't matter. What matters is that the total player count had now been increased to 5, and little did anyone know at the time, but this was only the beginning. A spreadsheet would be made to keep track of the community's worst and best segments. Monster Racer would enter a phase where it would be the most active it had ever been. On November 5th, 2021, Waffle Wizard 1 would hit the leaderboard scene with a time of 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 56 seconds. Only 3 days later, a race would take place on November 8th between many of the Spyro the Dragon Vortex speedrunners. This increased the game's popularity and added many to the leaderboard. Monster Racer had just now entered a phase where every day someone does a run. Monster Racer had gone to the point that it had more active runners than some of the most common speed games. The world record competition was highly competitive during this time, as the record kept getting lower and lower. Every day, someone booted up Monster Racer and had the chance to get the RNG of a lifetime and take world record for themselves. It was an exciting time to be speedrunning the game. Even if you didn't come away for world record necessarily, you could have gone a community best segment, or in some cases, even a community worst segment, which was celebrated the same. The game had reached great heights and found its way to a multitude of runners. Some runners would only do a few runs, some even less than that, maybe only one. But some other runners would do a lot, and one runner would stand out from the rest with his dominance over the world record. Cartoon Kid had already established himself as one of the best players in Monster Racer history. Ever since he started speedrunning the game, he'd always find himself having world record. Even when other competition began to rise, he would remain dominant. Looking at Cartoon Kid's runs, while he was taking tighter lines, and while he was taking better turns and getting more item boxes, Cartoon Kid was one of the luckiest runners in the game, getting big earn after big earn. For anyone to dethrone him, it would take a lot of luck and a lot of tries. But that doesn't mean that nobody tried. Waffle Wizard 1 is best known as a tasker and a runner for the original Spyro trilogy. When he began running Monster Racer, it was nothing more than just a fun distraction. But over time, Waffle Wizard would end up being one of the most active Monster Racer runners of all time. Many days he would boot up the game and hope for a chance at world record. Most days were unremarkable. With a game so reliant on RNG, you can only perform as well as the game lets you. Eventually, the attempts kept piling on for Waffle Wizard, but he just wouldn't stop playing.
I was like, damn, this is funny. I'm gonna start grinding it. And there were like days where literally Ash would get off the computer and then an hour later I will message and call him and be like, yo bro, do you want to hop on for some Monster Racer? And then Ash is like, dude, are you serious? I'm trying to go to sleep. And then like 5 minutes later they respond again like, okay fine, I'll come on and we'll play some Monster Racer.
Then on November 20th, 2021, Waffle Wizard would boot up the game while in a Discord VC, expecting this run to be no different from the other failed attempts. Except this one was something special. This one had the luck of a lifetime.
You know me, the fighting freak Knuckles, and we're at Pumpkin Hill. You ready? I ain't gon' let it get to me. I'm just gon' creep down in Pumpkin Hill. I got to find my lost piece. I know that it's here. I can sense it in my feet. The great emerald's power allows me to feel. I can't see a thing, but it's around somewhere. I'm gonna hold my head, cause I have no fear. This probably seems crazy, a graveyard theory. Our ghost try to approach me and got leery. Ask him a question and he vanished in a second. I'm walking through valleys, crying pumpkins in the alley. Didn't seem happy, but they sure tried to get me. Had to back him up with a fist metal crackle. I'm hearing someone saying, you a chicken, don't be scared. It had to be the wind, cause nobody wasn't there. I searched and I searched as I climbed up the wall. And then I started to fly, I went in deeper. Let it get to me, I'm just gon' creep. Down Pumpkin Hill, I got to find my lost piece. I know that it's here, I sense it in my feet. The great emerald's power allows me to feel. I can't see a thing, but it's around somewhere. I gotta hold my head, I have no fear. It probably seems crazy, a graveyard theory. A ghost try to approach me, he got leery.
Here it comes.
This is
Is this it?
probably where. This is probably where.
This is.
I think it is.
Oh my god. Holy shit, bro.
Let's go.
Oh.
Let's fucking go.
Oh my god, that's world record, bro.
GG. You almost got a fucking calm gold, dude, on that. On fucking, I think you got like a 159. Dude, and calm gold's a 158. 80%.
After grinding for so many attempts, world record had finally been Waffles. That was until Cartoon Kid took the world record back the very same day. Sometimes it just isn't meant to be. This started a joke amongst the other runners that Cartoon Kid was actually hoarding runs and was waiting to get bopped before uploading them. A theory that didn't actually have any evidence, but was something that became a long time running joke within the community. This community didn't know, however, that this would be the last time Monster Racer would see competition at the top level ever again. Waffle Wizard 1 would end up getting into hot water with another runner called Sucked. If you remember, Sucked was the one who did the research on the character stats as well as the other technical details. Waffle Wizard, as a joke, decided to proclaim that he had world record on the spreadsheet instead of Cartoon Kid.
I opened the spreadsheet, and then there was my time on the board, which was not worse. But I changed the color, and then I put a quote next to it, and I was like, no, this one's worse, smiley face.
It was good for a quick laugh, you know, to see a slower time claiming to be world record. But Sucked, he didn't find it very funny. And he wasn't having any of it.
And it was anonymous. So in the Discord, I wrote in the Discord after writing that on the spreadsheet, yo guys, I think someone's trolling. And then smiley face. And then Suck said, yeah, is that you trolling? Or something like that. I was like, no, smiley face. And then I got kicked. And then I rejoined. And then when I joined back in, I was like, yo guys, I hope the troll got kicked or something. And then the next message Suck sent me was, you're lucky I don't know you in person, because I would beat the fuck out of you. Yeah, it was some fucking weird shit. He wanted to like kill me. And then Suck deleted all of his accounts. And he was literally never seen again.
Suck would end up deleting all the Monster Racer research he had done, as well as deactivating his Twitch account. Right there in an instant, all the data and history of Monster Racer were gone. The amount of time it would have taken to rediscover everything that he did would have been too long for anyone to actually do in a game this obscure. Monster Racer, in that brief moment, had just lost all of its history forever. At least, that's what we thought. At the very last minute, right before everything was deleted, CF Gamebreaker, seeing Sucked losing his mind, would back up personal copies of all the data and all the research that he had done.
So basically, a couple of things happened that made me be like, it's maybe not good that this person has the key to all of this, like statistics and all that. And I'm like a total like statistics nerd with everything, right? Like in my main game, Spyro, like I'm very precise about keeping track of my golds and making sure they're accurate and stuff like that. So like the community spreadsheet that had like all the times and like all the community golds and all of that, like meant a lot to me. Like even if it's just a meme game, that's still like valuable stuff that makes it fun.
Everything was saved at the last possible moment, and without this data, we can only imagine how long it would have taken to rediscover what he did. By the end of November 2021, over 40 runs of Monster Racer were completed. The leaderboard had 12 active runners and added new categories such as any % new game plus, which allowed the use of locked characters, and cheat %, which allowed the player to have unlimited big earn boost. It seemed like Monster Racer had just taken off. But little did we know, the hype had already landed. After November, completed runs of Monster Racer would start to die down, and eventually it would die down to nothing. The boards remained the same, and the runs never changed. Many runners, including myself, decided that it was time to move on. I mean, after all, a joke can only be funny for so long.
I think the most impressive part nowadays, honestly, is just the way everybody figured out like the character stats and stuff like that. Just that narrowed it down that like Digo was actually the best, and I was like, whoa. Like I would have never thought that there was that much to the characters. But yeah, it's just kind of funny that, you know, it started as 2 runs and now there's like 14. I'm glad that you guys got to experience that, because that just kind of happens. You know, I've had games like that as well where it's just kind of a game that just takes over for no apparent reason.
Monster Racer is like just the fun meme game to play, like when we just want to, you know, relax and chill in VC or whatever, but like don't want to do a serious run or whatever, and but still like have fun. It creates an automatic high energy night is what it does. Like no matter what, if you're playing Monster Racer, like if you're not in the Monster Racer race and you're in that VC, you're probably hating Monster Racer, because we are all like, you know, yelling bigger and bigger and bigger, shit like that. Like, you know, like everybody is having so much fun with it. And like, you know, you just need those nights sometimes. And I guess that's what Monster Racer means to me.
See, Monster Racer is more than a game to me, okay? It's something way deeper. When I think of Monster Racer, I think of racing with the boys. I think of having fun with the boys. I think of the rivalry. I think of the leaderboard. You know? And deeper than that, it's not about getting worse. It's about playing with the boys along the way.
Derek,
Oh,
congratulations.
The tornado?
The tornado.
Dude, I thought for sure the tornado cucked me.
To this day, the board you see is a relic of the past. A time where so many runners decided to give the game a chance. A time where any run, with the right amount of luck, could world record. A time where anyone could play and bond over how bad the game really was. That is what Monster Racer meant to so many of us. Monster Racer never deserved to succeed as a speedrun. It's a bad PS1 game that was only released in PAL regions, and even then it's very unknown to most people. Monster Racer only succeeded because of the community it built. Whether it's the Rixer speedrunning the game on stream, to CFG spreading the game to others, to the insane amount of time spent in analyzing the game, to the rivalry between Cartoon Kid and Waffle Wizard, and so much more. Monster Racer itself isn't anything special. It's the community that was. And with a simple speedrun.com board and a few spreadsheets, terrible PS1 kart racer was able to tell stories and provide entertainment to all of us who ran it. So if you ever decide you want to get into the hobby of speedrunning, choose the games you want to. Don't feel forced into choosing the same games that everyone else already runs. Whether it's some obscure game that doesn't have any runs to a game that people question how could you even go fast. Speedrun the games that make you fulfilled and happy as an individual. Because at the end of the day, if Monster Racer can be a speedrun, then any game can be a speedrun.